Well, to learn more about today's modern wedding trends, I spoke earlier to Alejandra Poupel, founder of her own Paris-based event and design company, Alejandra Poupel Events. And I began by asking her about how ideas about marriage and weddings have changed over the last generation.
It's very different because, first of all, it really depends on the cultures because I actually specialize with working with an international discerning clientele. So I have clients from China, I have a lot of clients from America or Saudi Arabia, and it really depends on the culture. But I must say that the men are much more involved than they used to be. That's definitely for sure. Before we used to always get the brides, and now it's the bride and the groom, basically systematically. Definitely destination travel, because for now, families are from different countries. So that they do it in one country or that they do it in the other, each family isn't happy, so they ended up doing it in a happy middle place, which could be Paris, could be Venice, could be Lake Como, could be anywhere. So a lot more destination events has definitely, I think, come from this globalization of the fact that, you know, people are meeting from all over the world, and very few people are actually getting married with people from their same culture.
And that's interesting. And we're also seeing that people are actually waiting longer to get married. I mean, in the US, according to the US Census Bureau, the median age for a first marriage reached its highest point last year in 2018, 30 years old for men and 28 years old for women. With people waiting longer to get married, how is that affecting the wedding industry?
Well, it's also very different because then the parents aren't as in control, if you will, in the sense that, of course, when you're a bit younger, in between 18 and 24, your parents, they're much more involved in the organization and even actually picking the planner. And then the kids, of course, are involved, but not as much. But then when you're 28, you're 30, you're affirmed. Actually, many of the men or women, they have their own money, and so they're the ones spending it. And so it does give them a voice, much more than it used to have before, when they used to get married younger.
So then, speaking of money, how has all this changed? Who pays for what? How are people divvying up the expenses, especially if people are waiting longer when they're more established?
The truth is that it's across the board. There's really no rules. It really depends on the culture. It used to be, the woman's family, and then the men would pay for example, the rehearsal dinner. Now it seems to be like the one who has out of both families, the one who has the most money is basically just paying the event. And it doesn't really matter about the details of who and what. It's just the one who has the most money so they can do a grander party.
And people are looking for a party, also looking, as you mentioned, different experiences. Are you seeing any difference in the trends from those who are having their first marriage versus those getting remarried?
Well, I think that the numbers go down. You know, the first wedding, you always get married, and it's, 400 people or 300 people, and it's half of them are your parents, family, friends, etc. And then when you do more of a destination event, normally I would say more second weddings or like destination event weddings, something a little bit more intimate. You invite 30, 100, 150 people, and it's just a 3-4 day party, basically a celebration of life and a celebration of love.
Now, obviously, the wedding industry goes beyond just, the rings and the dresses and the tuxedos and things. Talk about some of the industries that have really been built off of the backs of marriage, and also how much staying power do they have? What's the competition like?
Well, I think the main answer to that is just the fact that the wedding industry is really, I'm an orchestrator of events. So basically I work with, incredible, wonderful vendors such as, incredible florists, incredible event designers, incredible builders, because today we build what we want. If the client wants it, we can build it. It could be glass houses. It can be literally creating a town. It could be anything they want. So absolutely the competition has gotten more and more. Why? Because there's actually more and more demand. That's undoubted for sure. And I really think that mainly to answer your question, it would be that we need to really focus on quality. I think people right now are really focusing on quality and not quantity. So even though there is a lot more competition, there's a lot more focus on getting the best quality.
Now, I also want to talk about some of these other traditions. There are some cultures and parts of the world where people still pay a dowry, where there are also arranged marriages in many parts of the world. How do all these modern wedding concepts fit in with those traditions?
Well, I must say, me working a lot with, like, for example, the Arabic culture or the Indian culture, today, like, the new generation is really different. Sometimes I ask them, I'm like, well, how did you meet your husband? And it is, in a way, families introducing each other, and it's always, in a way, arranged, but it's not, because you still now you have more of a choice. Like these modern weddings, you do have more of a choice to say, well, finally, he's just really not my cup of tea, and so then there is no second date. So that that has changed. There's still tradition. The families really feel very strongly about certain things that need to be done in a wedding. Like, for example, in Arabic weddings, they can be like all women. And so, that is something that we need to adhere to. And so it's not that easy. All the staff has to be women, etc. For the Indian weddings, there's, 3 or 4 days. Usually by the 5th day after an Indian wedding, I mean, I can hardly crawl because I'm so exhausted because it's never 1 day or 2. So the traditions and the rituals are really still done for the parents, and people respect that because weddings are about emotion and about uniting 2 families. So you don't want to hurt those feelings. Yet the modern bride today, I mean, it's much more open and free to disagree, if you will.